Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. This is, of course, the podcast where we taste everything that is on order for television and film, and we tell you what you should be tasting, what you should be, I don't know, not putting in your mouth. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me this week, it's Grace, of course. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well. It's Canadian Thanksgiving weekend up north of the border, and I had to tell my family, so I'm sorry, I can't have the turkey dinner. I'm full already. I ate so much TV this week. I saw so many movies. I'm full. I can't have the stuffing because I'm already stuffed. That's what I told them.
Listen, I actually did watch a lot of things
You
this
did watch
week.
a lot
Big
of things.
Brother came to a close this week,
Mhm.
and I have been just cramming things left and right. Lots of horror, but also some other things. So I'm actually listen. I'm back at the top of my game here
I
today.
love it. That's good.
I got thoughts. I'm gonna go over lots of the things that we've been watching, things that are on, things that are coming, and of course some news items. I think basically there were a bunch of things that aired this week, things that will be airing, but a couple of top headlines, I think, one of which is very sad news for us content enjoyers, which is that Chaos, one of my favorite shows of the last couple of months, already been canceled by Netflix. It's one season and done for Chaos.
Yeah. So, Taryn, this was on your radar before it came out, and that was it's still a recommendation that I very much trust. And actually, I think this speaks volumes to you that I watched an episode. I quite liked it, and if people want more of your takes, they should subscribe to the We Know Scripted TV feed where they can get more episodes of the Tastemakers. We're also on YouTube and give us ratings and reviews. All of that fun stuff. Yeah, there's a button down there somewhere, or it's in your app. Yeah, I mean, I now am in this dilemma, Taryn, of feeling like, should I keep watching? And I feel like this is a sentiment I feel like that's happened a lot over the last few years as Netflix has dropped these shows. Like I feel like the biggest example that I felt, at least in my bubble, was when Glow got canceled, and that was not a one season show. That was a few seasons show, but then that got canceled, didn't get to wrap itself up. I was pretty disappointed about the cancellation of 1899 a couple of years ago, which was the follow-up show to Dark. But I think everybody has had a show that they were very excited about that was on Netflix, and then it gets canceled. And the thing that's tough is that Netflix is by far and away the thing that most people are subscribed to, and they produce so much content that I feel like the thing of like, well, I'm not going to get invested in Netflix shows. Like, if you could do that, bless you. Bless that you can like cancel your Netflix subscription and not watch any of the Netflix stuff. I don't feel like I can. And I feel like that's bad because then they can just cancel these shows that I really liked the first season of. And I don't know what to do about that, Taryn.
Well, this is the thing. I think their formula is still working right now in the sense that yeah, you can just scattershot because for every Chaos, which is a very fun show, that just didn't have the viewership to warrant them continuing. And you might say, and I would say, like give it a chance, let it come into season 2, let the word spread a little bit. You might really have something on your hands. I don't think they need it because for every Chaos that maybe has some potential, there's another new show that might have a lot more potential, because they do release with a frequency a show that just blows up and does really well and it hits right away. And that's going to be inherently more valuable than a show like Chaos that might attract a cult audience at some point eventually. And I think, an example of that is Nobody Wants This, which Netflix has released, and it's crushing. Very fun show. I checked out a few episodes so far. And it's a good show, and has very broad appeal. It is doing very well, and so you can kind of understand, even though it's very frustrating, why Netflix would be like, yeah, why are we going to spend more on Chaos? It didn't hit the way we wanted to right away. When we can make more shows like Nobody Wants This, that'll just hit and it'll smack and it'll be great.
I mean, not only is Nobody Want This doing extremely well on the platform, it got announced that it has been renewed already. And so
Exactly.
it is going to be a season 2. I think it's pretty interesting. They're going with new showrunners, and I'm excited to try and figure out what that means. Like, why did that happen? I will say I was at a wedding this weekend. Shout out to Lindsay Wilson, listener of the pod. And that's who got married. And I did on a random shout out. And then everyone I talked to and was like talking about television, and so many people were like, yeah, I'm watching Nobody Wants Us, or I've already finished it, or whatever. Like, it was so common.
And
But then
Nobody
there's
Wants
yeah,
This, for the record, is the Adam Brody,
right,
Kristen Bell romantic comedy about a podcaster and a
right.
rabbi.
Right. And so yeah, people are seeming to like it a lot. I feel like, yeah. And apparently one of these like metrics that Netflix uses is the completion rate. Seems to be something that plays heavily based on some reporting about how they decide what gets renewed or not. The other thing, Taryn, I was wondering if in so much, I think that like it does feel like we do have like power of the purse, but it kind of doesn't feel like that. Like, if you watched all of Chaos, like it doesn't
Well,
feel like
that's
you.
I feel like you're saying it's my fault because I've still only watched 2.5 episodes of
I
Chaos so far. It's
No,
when
I
I
am
watch a
not.
good show, I'm like, I want to enjoy this. I don't just want to
I
spend
know.
all of it right away. So I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take this in. Whereas Nobody Wants This, I've watched already like 4 episodes because it's just so easy.
Yeah. Okay. So here, like, there's so many things here, which is one is like that this show came out, Chaos came out like 6 weeks ago. And so if it was airing, I believe it's like 8 episodes. If it was airing 8 episodes weekly, it would not be done, finished airing its first season. And so there's also the same thing with movies, right? Where it's like movies are considered and deemed a failure after 1 week of not having an immense box office. And I do this too. I'm like, oh, that's bad opening weekend for like this movie. When really that doesn't really matter, except you want movies that you like or TV shows that you like to be more successful so that they'll make more shows like that. And I actually wonder if the opposite end of this like relationship we have with Netflix that will actually matter is whether or not showrunners and creators are going to take their stuff to Netflix over somewhere else that might not drop their show in a binge and you might get forgotten about. Like, I don't know if that's like true or not, but there's this thing of like maybe it's not us who will like impact like where we search stuff, but you might see that somebody might like choose. We have heard this. There's like other this has happened where they're like, we're not going to go to Netflix because we don't think that that makes sense for it. But there's also a world which people think it's incredibly like if you do have a hit on Netflix, you have a massive hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know, from my perspective, it's always you always have this idea of like, man, when they cancel a show, big
I know.
mistake,
I know.
right? Like that's but at the end of the day, like, I think that they're making a decision that maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but it's not super likely to have long-reaching consequences. People go to Netflix for a reason. If they are in a position to have offers from multiple streaming services, then they're going to make their decision based on a number of factors, one of which might be vaguely, well, I think that I've heard that Netflix might cancel shows at a higher frequency, but like if they're canceling my show, that means it's probably also not the hit I want it to be in the first place. And so, if it's on Netflix, it has a higher chance of being that hit in the first place. So, I'm sure there are lots of factors that go into it. If you are a creator like Ryan Murphy, then you're signing big lucrative contracts in the first place, right? So, I don't know. It sucks. It sucks. It also sucks that like I feel like if I want to be a good viewer, I should just binge the show so that like it has the numbers it needs. But like, what can I do?
No, you're a
Like,
drop in the bucket. It's not your fault for not. Yeah, I think that that's very silly. Yeah,
but
which
for
is
the
a bummer.
record,
Yeah.
if you did or have if you haven't checked Chaos out yet, you still can. Now, obviously, I haven't finished the season yet, but from what I've heard, while the ending of the season is not necessarily the end of the story, the showrunner did intentionally create an ending to season 1 that could theoretically serve as a series ending as well. It like wraps up a lot of things, is what I have heard, what I have read, understanding that it might be the only one that goes out. So I think it's still a show probably worth watching. I can let you know when I actually end up finishing it.
It's Jeff Goldblum as Zeus. Like, what more do you want? Yeah.
I mean, a season 2, I guess, would probably be the more.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nobody Wants This was the talk of the town, I feel like.
And for
At
good
the
reason.
wedding. Yeah.
It's a good show. I mean, Adam Brody and Kristen Bell, fantastic together. I mean, great chemistry. It reminds me of that other movie with that
Mhm.
rom-com recently.
Oh, they're not the Ashton Kutcher one, is that right?
No, the one where they like hate each other, and it's Glenn
Oh,
Powell and
Anybody But You. Anybody
Anybody
But
But
You,
You.
or
Nobody
Anyone But
wants
You.
this, anybody but you, right? Like, it's
Anyone But
these
You, yeah.
similar kinds of
Mhm.
names. Zero
Yeah.
chemistry between those two. It was
Uh,
that movie did not land for me. Adam Brody, Kristen Bell, they're doing well in this one. And it's a fun show. It's a quick show. One of the things I've really enjoyed about it so far is that we talked about this a little bit with
Heartstopper.
Heartstopper. Man,
Heartstopper.
these names sometimes. In the sense that like there is typical kind of like relationship drama. It's a rom-com after all. But what I like about Nobody Wants This is that despite the title, the two characters do actually seem like they want it.
Right.
Like every time they're together, it's so chill. And I'm like, yeah, I understand why they have a relationship, because they enjoy each other's company and they get along well. And like there's other stuff impacting their relationship, but like it's not like it made me realize that when I watch a rom-com, a lot of the times it's like I'm rooting for them to get together for the sake of it, not because I actually enjoy their interactions, because their interactions are just stressful because they're full of misunderstandings and like all this
Right.
blah 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 nonsense. This so far, at least in the first few episodes, has avoided that. It's been like when they're apart, it's like, oh shit, does he actually like me, or like all this stuff.
Mhm.
But then when they're together, it's like, yeah, I remember now. This is actually really good. I think this is good. And so it's been a nice little warm, fuzzy kind of show so far, and I've enjoyed it.
Mhm. I went to the Heartstopper premiere that I chatted about. I cannot remember if it was last week or the week before, but I got to go watch the first 2 episodes on the big screen at the TIFF Lightbox, and there was a Q&A afterwards, and it was very good. And one of the things that Alice Oseman talked about is, as the show has, there was a little bit she had never written for television before, and so her first season, she feels like she added in a lot more of the stuff that she didn't think she thought that she had to put in more tension and some of that more classic drama. Not that it's like that's all season 1 is, but a little bit more of it than even she does in the books. When I read the books, I found them to be very like a little bit like not for me, because it was lacking so much tension, I kind of felt like. And so I kind of haven't followed up with the books that much. But then she was talking about how this is really what she wants to do, which is that every conflict on Heartstopper, if you watch this, we will see this, is just solved when the two characters talk to each other. And it's exactly what you're just saying, of like they never misunderstand what they're talking about. It's just mostly that like there are moments where they're not talking to each other, and then by the end of the episode they do, and then they resolve it. Not with this like, and now everything will be better, but like, isn't this better that we talk and communicate? It's really what Alice Oseman is like teaching people to watch that show, which I think is really interesting. And that she felt like the more successful the show got, the more she could do the thing that she had wanted to do. I feel like they have similar vibes between Nobody Want This and Heartstopper. Just that Heartstopper is like for probably like teens and young adults, and then Nobody Wants This is for people a bit older than that, I think. But both great shows on Netflix that people
Yeah.
watch, and so they got renewed. Yeah.
Yeah, Outer Banks season 4 also just dropped. It's the first half of Outer Banks. Outer Banks is a show I did check out. I watched the first season, which is 10 episodes and 8.5 hours of content. And it's a show. It's one of those classic kind of like young adult shows about like kind of like surfer bro kind of types, and very like relationship drama heavy, but with like a little bit of a treasure hunt angle.
Okay.
So it's kind of fun in that way. For me, by far, the best episode was episode 4, where it kind of takes a little bit of a turn relationship wise that I was actually really into, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. Like, I'm into this." But then it just kind of starts to lose me. I checked out season 2, and I just started to be like, you know what? I don't think I've got it in me to keep watching 10 episode seasons of this show. And so I ended up dropping it, but it is a very popular show. I think if it fits your vibe, it's probably a pretty good version of this. If the basic premise sounds interesting to you, of like teenage relationship drama plus treasure hunting kind of stuff, on the run, kind of that sort of thing, then you'll probably enjoy it. I think it tends to be very, very popular, as I said, and I don't think that like people who are fans of it are feeling super down about it by any means. I think season 4 has so far had a pretty good response.
Yeah, I sometimes it's tough for me to tell what is being successful on Netflix because mine is Canadian, so I get the top 10 TV shows in Canada, but it does look like Outer Banks. I think in Canada it's number 1 and it's number 2. Over the show Deceitful Love. Have you heard of this shit? Apparently this is the number 1 show right now. After turning 60, a
Deceitful
wealthy
Love.
woman suddenly falls in love with an attractive and much younger man, but her family raises doubts about his intentions. This is apparently the number 1 show on Netflix right now, and I had not heard, but
In
it does.
Canada, or
No, in America, and it's number
they what
3 in
what?
Canada. I know, I
I've
know.
never heard of this before. I mean, I saw this when
Let
I
me
was looking at shows, but I was like, I mean, no shade, but I saw the poster and I was like, yeah, that's
I
not anything that's going to be popular.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, like, a lot of people have Netflix, so, like, I think that this is the type of show that maybe, like, I don't know, I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna have to stop thinking about
If
whether my mom is
genuinely
watching
for
this,
that to be
but
the number 1 show is super interesting. Like, it has
well, apparently
700 ratings on
it's
IMDb.
it's Italian. So why is it? I don't know. Let me
Maybe
just
just
make sure.
internationally. Maybe in Italy it's crushing. But you said in
Uh,
US, so
okay, no, maybe it's looking like it didn't peak at number 1 in the U.S. I'm this website I'm on. I can't tell how accurate this is.
okay.
I mean, I don't. It does say maybe that it's number 1 on Netflix. I don't know. Anyway, it looks to be high up. It looks to be high up. At the very least, in like the top 5 of Netflix. And yeah, you and I
There
have
you
like
go.
not heard of this. Yeah. A lot of
Um,
people also were doing both Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, and
yep.
then subsequently the documentary that dropped on Netflix as well, Taran.
Yes, Monsters doing very well. Monsters is one of those shows. You had that wedding experience. I had my hair cutting experience of
Mm.
talking to my hairdresser about shows she's watching, and she was like, "Yeah, I've been watching Monsters. Did you hear about Monsters?" Oh, of course, I've heard about Monsters. I heard about this. There's actually some controversy. She's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Oh,
apparently
fun.
there's also like a documentary about like the Drew story." And she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to watch that too now." And I was like, "That's how they get you."
No, you did it, Taran. You recommend. So I had a wedding story this weekend as well, which I was at Lindsay Wilson's wedding. I was sitting at a table with another podcaster, Alex, who podcasts with Lindsay Wilson, and Alex's girlfriend was there. And at Friday night at the dinner before, we were talking about television, and I was like, "Well, this is what I do. I tell people what to watch." And she was like, "Well, I'll take recommendations." And I was sort of like, I said nobody wants this, and there was maybe some hesitation that wouldn't be the right show. I was like, "Oh, you know, it's really good. I think English Teacher is really good. I think you might like English Teacher." Credit to Laura. Came the next day and was like, I watched 7 episodes of English Teacher today. That's the funniest show I've seen in a long time. I really appreciate the recommendation. And I feel like if there's not a better advertisement for the Tastemakers, it's that of me being like, I don't know, maybe try this show. And then she's like, I watched, 3.5 hours of that show today. Pretty impressive, I think.
Well, I did end up watching. I watched like 2.5 episodes of Monsters.
Yes.
Um, And I gotta say, it's pretty good. It's not, listen, ethics aside, like it's
Oh,
put together in a compelling way. I'm kind of like I'm kind of watching, like
did you watch
I love
Dahmer? Because I feel the exact
see
same way about Dahmer.
see I was actually like like guilty pleasure wise, like the Ryan Murphy stuff can often work for me. The American Crime Story, like I even watched the Bill Clinton one,
Oh yeah.
like I thought that was interesting. I watched one episode of Dahmer and I was like, "Ugh."
Yeah, I did
Didn't
like
work for
it.
me, but this one is.
I did like it. Yeah, I'm kind of the same. And then I was like thinking recently about like horror television. I was like, I have not watched American Horror Story in a long time. I was like, wonder if I should like pick that back up. So I do feel like there's like Ryan Murphy kind of has like the like glossy streamer stuff, and then he has the like network TV stuff. Apparently Jess is being tasked with watching the witch seasons of American Horror Story.
I
So
watched that one. I watched like it must have been 6 seasons of American Horror Story, and it felt like
yeah.
obligation because there are so few horror shows. And I
Yeah.
liked the
Uh-huh.
first one and maybe the second one. And then I watched all the others because I was like, surely it'll get good again. And for me, no.
No. Okay. Well, that's okay. I mean, the other one, it's not, again, I don't think it's really horror, but Agatha All Along was all over my timeline this week. They had a big moment. And if you don't go searching for the big moment, because if you're going to watch the show or you don't, like, don't look for it, because I feel like it's all I saw this week was like, as soon as the thing happened, the episode got released and they revealed a Marvel thing. And then that's all my timeline was, which I'm very happy. And I don't mind being spoiled, but you know, it happened.
I haven't seen it, luckily. So if you're like me, continue to avoid it. I will have to catch up on Agatha All Along. That is one show that I was not able to catch yet. But listen, we're rapid firing on you here because I'm watching a bunch of stuff. We mentioned the franchise last week, which is the new Armando Iannucci show. I don't want to call it just his show, though. As I saw in the credits, there were some other people attached to this: Sam Mendes and
Music by Trent Reznor
John
and
Brown.
Atticus Ross. There's a lot of people in the show. It's great.
So it's about the making of like a superhero movie. I think a movie. And basically what I said was like, Armando Iannucci, he was behind Veep, in the thick of it, and some of these other like very, I call them like dry, like on the surface highbrow but very lowbrow as well, kind of comedies. And I think they can be very, very fun. I enjoyed Avenue 6, which was one that he made, which was more of a sci-fi thing, less politic, more or sorry, Avenue 5 it was. Get the number straight. More of a sci-fi, kind of like a bunch of people get trapped on like a space cruise ship, which I thought was a very fun show with Hugh Laurie, but maybe not quite to the level that people were used to. Wasn't super well received. I think the franchise, if you were not a fan of Avenue 5, is unfortunately for you more in that vein. It is a little more like straight goofy stuff, with still the flair of that of Armando Iannucci, but like, you know, if you were looking for another Veep, I don't think this is going to be it for you based on at least that first episode would be my judgment there.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the franchise was mostly fine. Thought it was mostly good, actually. I guess I would say it's like I thought it was pretty good. It doesn't feel maybe as like sharp as I wanted. There's definitely some funny jokes in there. There's definitely like I'm like, oh yeah, like that seems true based on what I know about it. So I feel like I came away and I did have this is a show that I like had heard about, had no expectations for, and in fact was like, I don't think I'll like that. And then heard who was involved in it, and my expectations got raised. And then they since dropped after watching it. And I think that from the people who've seen a lot of it, I think that kind of sticks. But it's fine. I'll probably watch it all. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I really don't mean this in like a mean way, but I think that if this show was on the air like 10, 15 years ago, we'd probably feel a lot better about it. But it's just not bringing enough new to the table
Well,
for me.
well, isn't it
It
that
doesn't
like
feel fresh.
well, the thing about Veep is that eventually, like Veep, it was like it was a politics. There's a bit of rose-colored glasses, I think, when we look back at like that politics wasn't as bad. Like it got worse, certainly, like 2016. But there was a little bit of like, oh man, Veep can't even like the stories are they can't even make them up as ridiculous as like real life is, which I think is probably a little bit of us misremembering. But I do think it's true. I think it was a little bit ahead of its time. And so then therefore, like this show, I do feel like the cultural conversation about superhero movies has been so had that it's like it doesn't feel like it's like telling us a lot new in the way that Veep I think did. I didn't watch Veep at the time, so I don't know how, like I watched it a little bit later, but that's kind of my thought on why the franchises maybe doesn't feel quite as like doesn't have as much teeth as Veep did. And I haven't watched Apnea 5, so I can't comment on that one.
Well, I did also watch, while I was just checking stuff out, I saw this Netflix anime show that they were advertising called Dandadan. And I gotta say, I have a history with anime shows that sound like they're nonsense in the title. And so Dandadan, I was like, oh, whatever, I'll throw it on. I thought it was actually very fun. I liked episode 1 of Dandadan randomly. It's just like I actually don't even know exactly what it's gonna be. Maybe a little bit of shonen kind of thing. It's like a mix of like aliens and ghosts that they're fighting, basically, and they each have their own kind of like alien or ghost-esque superpower.
I kind of like the tagline here. It's apparently very well here at the end of it. In a bet to prove whether ghosts or aliens exist, 2 high schoolers face terrifying paranormal threats, gain superpowers, and maybe even fall in love. That's the tagline.
That's exactly right. Like, because like even the little bit of like romance thing, which shouldn't work in a 20-minute anime thing, was actually like, oh, that's a little bit sweet. Even it was very hinted.
Right.
But the other thing that was interesting to me about this is that I was like ready to watch episode 2, and there was no episode 2 because this show on Netflix, because probably it's not a Netflix made show, it's probably developed by a Japanese company or something.
Yeah.
It's airing weekly on Netflix.
I
Just
see that
one
episode 2 is
per
out.
week.
I see that episode 2 is out, Taran.
I watched it before episode 2 came out.
Okay, all right.
But yes, episode 2 is now out.
Okay, got it.
But it will be airing weekly all for its entire first season, which I honestly I don't know if I've ever seen that one episode at a time on Netflix before. So maybe I don't watch enough anime. Maybe there's more anime.
Also seems to be a manga that you could go read if you wanted, potentially. That is now a TV show. So yeah, yeah, still in run. So yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yes. And of course, we mentioned it last week as well, that Disclaimer aired its first 2 episodes, perhaps?
Yeah, they're dropping 2 episodes a week, I think, is what their plan is with the Disclaimer. Yeah.
I only watched 1.
I also only watched 1, but I really liked it. And I will watch the next one immediately after we're done podcasting, Taran. This is Alfonso Cuarón directing, based on a novel, and it's starring Cate Blanchett. It's an Apple TV show. Also has Sacha Baron Cohen and Leslie Manville. I was intrigued by the premise. This played at TIFF, and I knew that it was 2 episodes. I just didn't fit it into my schedule, and I kind of was regretting it. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh, maybe not so, because at least I only have to wait a week now to watch more episodes, as opposed to if I'd watched it a few weeks ago. There's a show I watched at TIFF that I'm like miserable that I won't be able to watch more of, I think, for a very long time. This is basically Cate Blanchett's character gets like a book in the mail that seems to imply that it's going to like it's about her and going to unveil a secret about her. She's a documentarian and a journalist. And you see very quickly get to learn, like, you're kind of like in 3 different stories. You're with like Cate Blanchett, you're with the person who reveals the story and maybe why they did it, and then you're also watching the story as it happened in flashbacks. I was quite entertained by this, and Alfonso Cuarón is directing and writing every episode, so I think I'm in, Taran.
Yes, and of course, Alfonso Cuarón, you may recognize being behind Roma, Gravity, Children of Men, or some of his original movies, like ones I will not be able to pronounce that I've read a lot and never actually said out loud, like Why Tu Mama Tambien.
Yeah. And Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, to that, yeah, you know what? That's fair. So accomplished and acclaimed film director taking on a TV show here. I will say I wanted to like this. I feel like I might end up liking it, but having only watched one episode, I was left a little wanting, mostly because of the storytelling framing device where we were following these 3 different stories. I felt like we were rapidly switching between them. And I never felt like I was actually getting my footing in any one of them in particular. And then things started happening, and I was like, I still haven't figured out why I care. The reason why I have a little bit of confidence in watching the rest of the season so far is because I watched the first episode and then I was like, okay, I give up. I need to read a synopsis of the plot. And I read a synopsis of the plot that gave me some mild spoilers, and I was like, okay, now I'm interested.
Yeah, I would agree. It's built as a psychological thriller, and I feel like the show wants us to feel that way, but doesn't really do much to like get us there. I would feel like I just feel like the cast and who's behind this project, like even the son is played by Kofi Smith McPhee, who was in The Power of the Dog a few years ago, I believe. Did he got nominated at least for he got
Oh,
nominated for
that's where I
supporting
knew
actor.
him from. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of like star power in here that I'm pretty excited by. So and Indira Varma is the narrator, who is from recently she was in Game of Thrones. She's Ilaria Sand, and she was in something else recently. I feel like that I really liked her. And so yeah, I feel like she's in The Assessment. That's what I liked. It's a movie that played a tip. I just feel like there's enough there was definitely enough here for me to be intrigued and keep watching. I just couldn't keep watching because we were gonna podcast. So I watched it today. So yeah.
I also watched it today.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll definitely check out more episodes of Disclaimer and sort of know what the verdict is there, at least for me as I continue on. I've seen some less than stellar response to these first 2 episodes as well from audiences, at least so far, and I think based on my experience, I get it. My hope is that future episodes means this will actually end up being very good, and it's just kind of a bit of a slow burn start, especially being adapted from a novel. Novels often will have this kind of slow burn start to them as well. There's more of an investment mindset with those, so we'll see. I think this is also, again, this is a film director approaching television, and so may not have the same sense of timing and pacing that a normal show might, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we'll see. We'll see is kind of the verdict there from me.
This one that's getting a little bit higher of a critic score than is an audience score as well, which critic scores might also indicate that they've seen more of it potentially as well.
I think they have.
So yeah, not that it's universally allowed. There's definitely some critics who are like, what's this? Disclaimer's elegant trash. I think it's harsh, but fair. I'm kind of pretentious sometimes. I like pretentious shows. So if I like it, yeah, could be it. Can I talk a little bit about movies, Taran? I watched a few movies. I have not done Terrifier 3 yet, which did win the box office this weekend, which I think is incredible. I think that is amazing. I think that's so fun that it won. I have not watched the Terrifier movies. I'm going to sit down this week and watch the first 2 and then go see the third one. So I will let you know how that goes.
I have watched them. I'm so bad at remembering movies. Okay. I may have to do the same before I see Terrifier 3.
I don't know if this is one that like almost everyone would be like, you gotta watch Terrifier 2 before you go watch Terrifier 3. It feels like
I think that's might be probably very
I don't know if
true.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's still nice. Okay. Sorry, briefly.
Yes, please.
I started Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I watched like 15-20 minutes of it. For the record, I don't think I'm going to like love the movie. That's why I was perfectly willing to start it, even though I knew I didn't have time to finish it. I normally approach these kinds of movies with the strategy of I'm going to see the first one to refresh myself, then watch the sequel. It's what I did with Inside Out 2. I regretted it for Inside Out 2 because I felt like it was too similar to the first movie. I felt like I would have enjoyed it more if I just watched it without refreshing myself.
Right.
With Beetlejuice, I was like, listen, the first movie came out like 25 years ago ish.
Yeah.
At least
maybe more. Yeah.
And I watched it when I was a kid. I very vaguely remember it. It was 89. So yeah, pretty pretty spot on.
Yeah, that
And
is good.
or no, not, it was pretty spot
30,
on. It was
33,
35 years.
33 years. Yeah, that's
Um, don't mind me. I still think we're in the year 2020, 2014. 35 years ago. That's older.
Mhm.
That's older than me. How did I
Mhm.
watch this as a kid? I guess it was just out. So I was thinking, oh, sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing too. I was looking at the animation. This was actually 1988.
Okay.
Beetlejuice.
Well, yeah. So a little, yeah. Okay.
My thought was, I'm going to approach this movie. I'm going to not watch the first one to refresh myself.
Yeah.
The onus is on it. It has been 35 years. It better
I don't,
refresh my memory of it.
I don't think Pennywise has anything to do with this movie, Taran, but that's okay.
It's very fair. You'd expect maybe.
But yeah. But I hear what you're saying. I feel
15, 20 minutes in,
I agree
I
with this
felt like,
take.
no. I felt lost. I was like, oh man, there's so much of this that I don't remember, and I don't know if I'm supposed to remember it. Don't like it. Don't like that. The movie's fine so far.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't rewatch the movie, but it's probably not been. I mean, I think it's been years since I watched the last time I watched Beetlejuice.
It's probably been roughly 25 years for me. I probably
Not that
watched
many. Well, I'm like single digit years and probably less than 5 for sure. So I don't. I didn't have that same thing. The one thing I could not, but I was surprised by how many children were in my movie theater. This movie does drop an F-bomb at one point. Not that children can't hear the F word, I think, but I was very surprised. It actually has one of the best drops of the F-bomb in a recent movie, Taran. I would actually say maybe not worth sticking for just that reason with it, but I don't know. I liked it. I think that it's perfectly in this thing that I feel like Scream did recently, the Scream reboot, where it was like it's the legacy sequel thing of like old characters, new characters, like we're bringing Jenna Ortega in, but we also have like a bunch of the old cast. I thought it's fit together pretty seamlessly. I think there's probably a bit too much going on in the movie, which you haven't gotten to yet, but which probably is a point in the favor of like too much going on. If they simplified it, we don't have to worry so much about the legacy of Beetlejuice, but I don't know. I thought it was mostly pretty good, but yeah, not amazing.
Yeah, like I said,
Amazing.
it's no comment on the quality of the movie itself, more so just like my own struggle with trying to figure out, should I watch the first one if it's been 35 years before the sequel, stuff like that. But please go. I don't know if you any more to say about Terrifier 3.
No, I don't really. Just that I'll go watch. The other horror movie I watched was there's a Sarah Paulson horror movie on Hulu called Hold Your Breath. It also has Eben Moss Bacharach, so I was pretty excited about this one. I did not go see it at TIFF because I knew it was coming out shortly. I have to say I love the themes of this movie and feel like if they like executed better on the theme of the movie, I would really like it. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, but everything just seems sort of like underdone. It's not long, so you could probably watch. You could watch, but don't put it up at the top of your list. But there's some interesting ideas, which then you're like, oh man, if the ideas were done well, this would have been good. So I guess it's not very good, which is too bad because I really like Sarah Paulson and I really want Eben Moss Bacharach to have a very successful movie. He's going to go and be in Fantastic Four, so he'll be fine. So, but you know, yeah. The other movies I saw, Taran, were that I've seen. That I didn't go see them this season, but are out. Is Saturday Night, which is kind of getting this review
That's
of
the
like
Saturday Night Live movie.
90 minutes before SNL. It's getting the review of like it's fun. It's not amazing. And I think it's exactly that. Where it's like there's so many interesting ideas. They're trying to do so much, but I feel like they contain themselves. In a way that doesn't make sense, and it's not like super like accurate, which is fine. Except then you're doing a thing where it's like we're gonna. I don't know. The story is so obvious in terms of like, does SNL get on the air? So that was interesting. And then the other one that came out that's I don't know. I feel like got a lot of promo recently is The Apprentice, which is the Donald Trump movie that I would recommend people go see. I think the performances are incredible, but I also put a giant caveat, an asterisk on it that I'm Canadian and maybe have a higher tolerance for Donald Trump than other people do. I do think it's interesting and a good movie, and I think it does not exaggerate. In fact, I think Donald Trump, you would still agree by the end of the movie, he's a terrible human being, but it is quite an interesting examination about how he might have become who he is under the tutelage of Roy Cohn, and it's an incredible performance there. But you know, if you don't have the appetite for it, don't go see it. But I think it's very good. So,
yeah, it feels like the kind of movie that maybe people would want to wait until after the election.
Well, the whole point was just to like get it out before the election. If you want a movie that will make you cry, not because Donald Trump might be in the election, you could go see We Live in Time, which is the Florence Pugh Andrew Garfield movie that's out now as well. It will make you bawl, but it is very, very good as well. So you could check that out as well. But yeah, there's a bit of a movie corner, Taran, for me.
Bit of a movie corner. Well, are we ready for horror? I wanted to wrap up with horror.
The only other thing that I think is interesting that I put in, I'm gonna watch. I heard that you caught a snippet of this right before Big Brother, but Tracker season 2 is returning. Tracker season 1 was the most watched show last year, in the calendar year for Nielsen ratings. Like millions of people watch the show. First show since 1963 to be the number one most watched scripted show. Normally football is the most watched show, so we have to have a caveat. Most watched scripted show since 1963. No, to be in its first season of a show. Every other show has had, Seinfeld has been the most watched show, All in the Family. Like all of these shows have been around for forever. NCIS was like the number one show for such a long time.
Is this like that's like for network Nielsen ratings?
This is like Nielsen ratings, yeah.
Okay.
And so it was the number one watch show. And yeah, season 2, they premiered it after the Super Bowl last year, which was, I think, also gave it a huge bump. But yeah, season 2 has come on, and my mom was and I was saying this to you, my mom was very excited about it. And I kind of feel like they made a dad show because it's like a tracker, he's gonna investigate stuff. And then also they were like, they put the guy from This Is Us in it, and so it's also a mom show, which I know is completely stereotypical on my end, but I kind of feel like they're trying to hit the older demographic of people who are watching network television. Are like, yeah, I'll watch Tracker. I'll watch that.
I had no idea this show was doing so well. I see the commercials for it
Yeah.
all the time while I'm watching Big Brother. And I talk about it because I stream during them, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's that guy from This Is Us. And
Justin Hartley.
I see the previews, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't. I'm just seeing the guy from this, because in This Is Us, he plays an actor who acts sometimes in movies and shows that are like Tracker. And they're like so stereotypical because they're a movie within a movie or a show within a show that it's like I'm just picturing him as the actor now doing this show, and it's just like it's very uncanny. It's like,
no, it's a very, very, very pop. It's the most watched scripted television. I mean, between this and like Yellowstone, that's what's been on TV the last like 3 or 4 years. No.
Yeah, I saw the ending of I believe it was episode 1 of season 2 last night when I watched the Big Brother finale. There were 10 minutes left in this episode.
So, I might check it out just because, I mean, that's interesting to me because I feel like we don't watch the shows that are like just on. The other one is there a guy, there's a commercial that I kept seeing around Big Brother that was just a name of somebody who's like from, and it's clearly like a prequel to one of the like NCIS, or it's just like Jethro Bridges, and that's all the commercial. They're just like, that's what they said. Did you encounter this advertisement? No? Am I?
No.
I'm gonna, Leroy Jethro Gibbs. I think they're doing NCIS Origin. So the commercial would just be this guy, and it would just say Leroy Jethro Gibbs. The commercial, and I was like, that must have tested really well, and it's wild that it just completely went over my head. But that's a guy who Mark Harmon plays in NCIS, and they're doing a prequel to NCIS called NCIS Origins with Austin Stowell as Leroy Jethro Gibbs. Anyway,
what are you gonna do
outside of our world, I think?
Listen, these shows can do really well, and not a lot of discourse around them, but
maybe I'll change that, Taran.
Maybe we will, but probably not. All right. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some horror then.
Let's do it.
Because I did watch a decent amount of horror over the last week as well. I mentioned last week that I saw the TV Glow.
Yes.
Finished it.
Yes.
Interesting experience watching this movie.
I saw somebody else watch this movie recently, and they were like, I did not enjoy the experience of watching that movie. I felt so defensive on behalf of like, that's exactly how you're supposed to feel, I think, at the end.
Okay. So this is the thing. I had kind of high expectations coming in. I watched the movie.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy the experience of watching the movie. I finished the movie, and I was like, wait, that's it? And I was like, that wasn't a very good movie. And then I was like, but I'm curious and I want to think about it a little bit. So I was thinking about it. I was reading some discussion about it. And I was like, the more I think about this, the more I'm kind of thinking, okay, it's a little bit better than I thought. But it was still not a very enjoyable experience. So still not a great movie. Then I thought about it some more and I was like, actually, the more I think about it, it's actually kind of good. Like it was kind of a good, it's kind of an interesting package here. Still didn't enjoy the experience of watching it, but maybe it's a good movie, actually.
This is exactly it, Taran. I did not like watching this movie when I first watched it, and I feel like probably like, you know, there is a queer story in here that I think is like there's a
Mhm.
world where like I was like pretty like, oh man, that sucked. And not again, not the like movie. And part of it is that like there is a way in which like this movie could have a different ending that would feel differently, but the movie chooses not to do that. The movie is like,
Mhm.
nah, no, you're not like nobody gets to have that ending. And you're like, but you could have given it to me. Like, no, you're not allowed to have it. And actually, it's very poignant that like this is what happens to people sometimes. Like this is the ending that happens when our society is horrific, when it's a horror
Mhm.
movie. It's just it's sad. I don't like the ending. And yeah, I
It's
had to do the same thing of like I don't like readjusting my letterbox scores, but I had to for this one
I
because
had to too.
I was like, that's exactly the feeling they wanted me to have, I think. And I think I need to readjust and figure it out and go from there and be like, this is a movie in which the lessons are like, don't do that. Don't let it happen like that. It's like do the opposite, which I
It's
oh
it's a movie I can't, like, recommend as, like, an enjoyable experience, but if it's something you're curious about and you're interested in being I don't even wanna say challenged because it's not like it challenged me, but, like, it's something that I feel it was a new take on how you wanna convey a specific message, and it made me think about the way that it framed things and the things that it could have been talking about, in a way I hadn't thought about before, and that's really valuable with storytelling, even when it's not an enjoyable experience. So, I think that if that at all sounds interesting to you, it's worth checking out. It's not even that long of a movie, and so yeah, I would give it a recommend. I think
I
if that's interesting.
I highly recommend it. I just think that just I mean, I don't know. Maybe the whole point is to have that feeling like you're having and then to like come away from it. And you already can't really remove yourself from that if you have not seen the movie and you've now heard us talk about it. Like I think now you're the feeling of it will feel different. But I guess I would say like you know, I don't know. I do recommend it. I think people should watch it. I think it's very important, but it is a horror movie, and I think it is kind of like it's an untraditional horror movie in this. But there's some
It
stuff in
does
this
have
movie.
actually scary things, but it is also more, like, existentially
Yeah,
horrific.
one of the things the movie does a depiction of something that I had never really seen done this way, Taryn, which is the way that they show how media feels different when you watch it as a kid to when you watch it as an adult, how it feels as a kid watching your favorite show and then watching it back and being like, this might not be what I remember was
That's
so
what I
well done.
thought the whole movie was about, and it
Right.
was really just, like, a little bit of a throwaway segment.
I know. But
But, like,
yeah.
not in a bad way, like, so
No, I
when I
agree.
saw the preview, I thought that's what the whole movie was about,
Right.
and it was very much not, even though I think, you know, it certainly ties into some of the themes. One very short note left on that movie, really good music in
Yeah.
the movie.
Mhm.
And I had a personal experience listening to the first song that plays when the credits roll. I was like, this sounds a lot. This sounds like Hop Along. They haven't made an album in forever. It sounds a lot. This is definitely Hop. It was Frances Quinlan who made a song for this movie,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
she's a fantastic singer and makes fantastic music. And I would highly recommend. She has a solo album, Frances Quinlan, and Hop Along, the band that she was in slash I don't know founded probably makes some great albums. So all right, I watched plenty of other horror as well.
Okay. Yes, please.
Let me pull this up here. So I checked out it's an HBO anime. It's at least an anime that is on HBO. Again, I don't know with the production company. It looks like it might have been Adult Swim it aired on as well, perhaps.
Mhm.
But it's called Uzumaki. I think this is a pretty highly respected manga. And this is like a fairly faithful adaptation of it. It's black and white. It's horror. And it's kind of about God, I wish I could tell you. Um, it's about like this little town that is being invaded by spirals is sort of
Okay.
how I would perhaps describe it. You sort of look at the cover, the poster art, and the tagline as something to oh, this is the episode. Uh, Kiri tries to escape from her town, where the residents get obsessed with spirals due to an unexplained curse. So it's pretty weird. It's very like abstract. Definitely not for everyone, but I think if you like this sort of like artsy abstract and stuff, and you're down to watch some anime, worth checking out. I'm tracking it for now. It was fine for me because it was just a little too abstract at times.
Hmm.
But we'll keep an eye on it. I watched because I was just trying to find like horror TV shows. Not a lot of them that I could find this year. One that was technically labeled horror, Dead Boy Detectives, which I never got around to
Oh,
watching.
Neil Gaiman.
Um,
Mhm.
Neil
On
Gaiman.
Netflix. Mhm.
I watched the first episode and a half or so, and I was like, "This is fine." Not something I feel like I need to watch an entire season of.
I
It,
think, yeah. You got it. You got it. I mean,
I
I
got it
liked
in
it.
one episode and a half.
Unfortunately, it's been canceled, I think,
It
which,
was
if you
canceled
did.
too, so that added to my feeling of I don't need to
Oh,
watch this.
Netflix, you canceled the show? Weird. Oh, man.
Mm,
I didn't mind it. It's definitely more, it feels like it's for a younger audience than The
yeah.
Sandman does. But there is, if you watch The Sandman, there is a ton of crossover between that and this. Like, you're gonna see characters show up, so
Mm,
that's kind of fun. The Sandman, I feel like thought it was coming back sooner. It looks like now they've officially said 2025, which is a bit of a bummer. They might be dealing. I know that there was some Neil Gaiman stuff in the news,
yes.
unfortunately, about some of his behavior, which yeah. So maybe they're just hoping that will people won't talk about it. They can
Yes.
release the second season, which is a
I'm
little bit
sure that's I'm
unfortunate.
sure
But
that stuff we will end up talking about as more as the show starts to potentially come back
yeah,
because I think this Sandman show certainly hangs in the balance at the moment as well as any Neil Gaiman adaptation. Um,
yeah,
More
yeah.
horror. I watched
Yes.
Immaculate.
Oh,
Speaking of
Sydney
Sydney
Sweeney.
Sweeney.
Yeah.
Um, it was pretty good actually.
I like it.
I was a little bit pleasantly surprised. It wasn't like, it wasn't groundbreaking, wasn't like really jumping out at me, but
Mhm.
I thought it was a pretty I say this, pretty fun little horror movie. Fun as horror can be. Um, I thought it was fine. It was not
Mhm.
something I would be like run out and see it. It was fine. I watched another one called New Life.
I don't even
Um,
know this one, Taryn. Well, I get
you
when you
don't, or you
turn
do?
up new when you do no, I don't know. When you Google New Life, you get a lot of stuff about church. You just
Wow.
Google that blind, but I'm gonna add movie to the end of my search here.
This one is about it's actually maybe I don't want to spoil it too much because it was I didn't really know what it was about until like halfway through the movie. Uh,
Okay.
but basically there's two main characters. There's one woman who's on the run. There's another woman who is chasing her. The woman who is chasing her has ALS, and you don't really know, I think, why she's on the run for a little while in the movie. It's it's a pretty low budget kind of little horror movie. Um, Again, not something I would be like, oh, it's super enjoyable to watch. But what I will say is that it had a nice sort of little. It felt like it was saying a little bit more specifically about ALS than I think the premise would imply. To the point where I was like, oh, this maybe could have been a little more subtle. But then I looked at some discussion about the movie, and it seemed like nobody got it, or maybe I was just wrong because everyone was like, "This plot was dumb. There's so many plot holes," and I'm like, "Yeah, because it wasn't actually. It was a metaphor." Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so maybe I'm the one that's wrong, but I thought it was a. Is it worthwhile? It's not something I would necessarily recommend, but I thought it was interesting.
It does have Sonya Walger in it, who, if you're not familiar with her, she's Molly Cobb in For All Mankind, and she's one of my favorite. It's basically the one reason to watch For All Mankind. Like without it,
She's
like I
very
was like,
good.
yeah. So I really like her. I just feel like she hasn't really like come out of For All Mankind with like the sort of acclaim that I would have liked for her to get. So yeah, that's kind of fun that she's in the movie.
Yeah. I then watched, we mentioned this last week, that a little show called Teacup was going to air. I had no idea what it was about or what the whole
Yeah.
thing was about, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's turns out stars
Yvonne.
Yvonne
Yeah.
Strahovski, probably. I apologize. I think she's great. I'm a huge fan of hers. I never had to say her name out loud before.
Yeah, you would know her from Handmaid's Tale, Dexter. These are shows she's been in. Yeah.
And back in the day, what was it? The like IT guy show, Chuck.
Yes, that's right. She was in Chuck. Yeah.
So I actually really enjoyed this. There's 2 episodes out. I really liked this show. This was actually really interesting to me.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
I was not expecting it to be good at all.
It's not currently airing in It's on Peacock.
Yeah.
But I am excited for this one. I am when I can check this out, I'm very excited. Yeah.
I don't want to like overhype it because I
Mhm.
came in with very low expectations.
Right.
But I believe it's based on a novel. And it's what I liked about it is that it has a very horrific premise that is perfect for, I think, exactly the pacing that it has. It's got some strong drama components. The characters feel solid. I have seen similar comments about like people feeling like there are plot hole things or like the characters aren't acting. I actually disagree with them on this one. I felt like the characters were acting fine in terms of their response to their situation. And it's part of what I'm enjoying about the show so far. I'm very excited to watch more episodes of Teacup. It's one that certainly, if you're looking at like horror shows this year, it's definitely up there for me so far. I also watched the first episode of From season 3 because I wanted to at least have a little taste of some From in season
Yeah.
3, and it's
Mhm.
exactly From.
Yeah, I've
It's
heard
exactly what
those.
you expect
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
And if anything, actually, maybe one of my favorite episodes from so far. It's
Oh.
I'm liking season 3. It's got a fun new little storyline. I love when they bring in the really horror-y elements, which they did in episode 1. And it's still got that classic like CW-esque drama to it that I do not enjoy, but I deal with it and we move on.
Okay, yeah, I mean, people have been starting to submit their ballots. We've reached out to some folks, some people that we trust with their television takes, with their balance. I don't think nothing is surprising so far. I think basically what we've been chatting about is pretty much about as to like, there's nothing here that I would be like, make sure you're watching this. I feel like we have our finger on the pulse, Taran, which I do think makes sense. There is this TV show Sweetpea that I haven't got a chance to check out yet. It's Ella Purnell from Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
It's not listed as like thriller or horror. In fact, it is listed as a dark comedy, and I've heard from people, including our producer Just Starring, that it's maybe not funny at all so far.
And
All
she's like,
6
"Where's the
episodes.
comedy?"
Yeah, no comedy. All 6 episodes have dropped so far, and I believe it's like a Sky show over in the UK. So I don't know at the moment how it's available in North America. I'll see if there's probably, I think it is playing on a streaming service, but it's Ella Purnell from Yellow Jackets. So and I don't think I'm spoiling. I believe she's a serial killer. I believe that's true. I believe that's what the premise is. So
I think that's the premise. That
it's
was
on
my
Starz.
understanding.
It's on Starz. Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Thank you, Jess.
I was excited to watch this one. Of course, Ella Purnell also made perhaps even more famously and more recently from Fallout.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Well,
so
I keep listing things that these people are famous for, and then you're like, you forgot the one that they're really famous for.
yeah, I was I'm hopeful to check that one out as well. I also had trouble finding it in the short term, but I'm looking forward to looking for it.
Based on what people have submitted so far and what I think like you and I are going to put on, I think it's a pretty good horror year. I think like it's maybe like a little shallower than it was like a couple of years. It was like a really strong year a couple years ago. Like the year that like Barbarian came out springs to mind as like a really strong year. But I think it's like I think I think I've watched a lot of good horror this year. So yeah.
Yeah. So I also checked out, by the way, a little movie called Night Shift. It was fine. It's fine. So in terms of my list, Alien still is my top pick, followed by Substance, and then honestly, them, Teacup, and From all doing great as horror shows this year. And then I popped in, I saw the TV Glow in there, and New Life, both above Oddity. I had like Immaculate, Uzumaki, and down toward the bottom, but then Dead Boy Detectives and Night Shift down at the bottom with like Salem's Lot. So that's kind of currently where the list is standing, but there's still a lot of big name horror movies that I have yet to watch, and still some other horror shows that I think are still going to air. So
yeah, I was trying to think, is there anything coming? Smile, I believe, got moved to be I believe it's coming out before it's an October 18th release. Smile 2 seems to be maybe one
Smile
that
2 is big.
Could come out. I think that's about it. Tara, can I tell you a quick story? I went to go watch Amityville Horror at a local theater near me. They were doing a small local theater, so they are doing airing an old movie, and I'd never seen it, so I went to go see it. It's really bad. I can't stop thinking though about how James Brolin, Josh Brolin's dad, looks exactly like Christian Bale. I couldn't like the whole time he just looks exactly like Christian Bale. I can't believe it. Look it up if you don't believe me. They had special presentation before from like these like paranormal people, so they did a bunch of stuff, and they were like, this is how you can tell, because people think that the theater is haunted, and so they did a little thing. And my favorite thing was the Q&A. The last question the host asked was, is there anything people should know about like paranormal? And she's like, I think the thing most people need to realize is that your house, if it needs to be cleansed or exercised, really you should be doing it monthly, weekly, sometimes daily. And I don't think I've ever seen a grift so fast. It's like, this house is so, they've already got to cleanse this thing daily, bro. It's like very silly. But I did go see a movie in a haunted theater apparently. Amityville Horror is very bad, but it was fun to watch with other people in a movie theater. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, I guess not too much, honestly, for me on the radar for next week. I know that Shrinking season 2 is coming, and I know a lot of people enjoyed Shrinking. It didn't quite land for me, but I know a lot of people are looking forward to Shrinking season 2. Also, The Devil's Hour season 2 is coming as well. I watched all of season 1 of The Devil's Hour.
Yeah,
on Amazon Prime. It's got Peter Capaldi in it, and it seems like the kind of show I would enjoy. I did not enjoy it. I don't know why.
Oh, it's Stephen. Executive produced by Stephen Moffat. That's why. Okay. More Apple TV's just I don't know what they're just dropping so much kind of. They're Shrinking, and also Silo, I believe, comes out pretty. I guess it's November.
Silo this week.
No, it's not this week. It's but they dropped a trailer. So Silo season 2 trailer came out, and Bad Sisters I think is also Apple TV. It's coming out soon. That I know Jess quite like. There's a lot of stuff coming. There's a lot of Apple TV. Yeah, Bad Sisters in November. I didn't see much else. I didn't see much else this weekend. Yeah,
not a whole lot else this week. There's a show called Rivals coming. It looks like to Disney Plus. That looks interesting to me with David Tennant. Also, Elsbeth season 2 is going to start this week. I hadn't even honestly realized that Elsbeth had finished its season 1. I could have sworn to you, if you asked me, I would have sworn to you that Elsbeth just started this summer.
Yeah, for this past Survivor season. But no, I think it was last Survivor season. Yeah. Yeah.
Who knew?
Josh Wigler did also ask me to do something that I haven't done yet, Taran, which is we were supposed to talk about a specific image that our friend Josh Wigler found on the internet, which is, have you seen the new promotional material for David Schwimmer in the new Goosebumps show? If you'll just bear with me.
Wait, there's
here.
a new Goosebumps show?
It's coming out in January because that makes sense for the Goosebumps show to come out in January and
Mm.
not in the fall. So if you'll just bear with me for 1 second, I'm just gonna pull this up and ask. Yeah, unfortunately, this will be mostly for folks who are on the YouTube. You can Google it yourself. What are we doing? What is this? It's Venom. It's just David Schwimmer's Venom. What's happening, Taran? It's very tiny, but here, let me zoom in for you. Why are we doing this? What are we doing?
He's got goosebumps.
Are those goosebumps? Those aren't goosebumps.
So, I mean, in my mind, the goosebumps like iconography is like green goop. If this was green, it would totally track for me.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah, Did you? My favorite show was Freaky Stories. I don't know if you've ever heard of Freaky Stories, but that was my favorite. I think it's Canadian.
Freaky Stories actually sounds familiar.
And it was hosted by, if you could just also indulge me as I show you the creatures that were. Oh no, yeah, I've got to share my screen again. Which is, if people aren't watching, that was David Schwimmer as the Goose people. These are the hosts of Freaky Stories. Just these two delightful creatures.
They also look a little familiar, but I'm not sure that it's for the right reasons.
This is Larry the Bug and Maurice the Maggot. That's who is host of Freaky Stories. So, I mean, yeah, they should really do a comeback of these type of, maybe they exist and I just don't watch them, but yeah.
Josh read a lot of Goosebumps when I was a kid.
Me too. Josh did ask me to share the image of David Schwimmer with you and just talk about how cursed it was. So we've done it. Mission accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's. Listen, I'll watch a Goosebumps show.
Season 1. Did you watch season 1? They rebooted it. I believe David Schwimmer's
it's already on.
And then season 2 comes in January. Yeah, I believe this is correct. Yeah, I believe it was covered on Post Show Recap. So yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can watch this.
I wonder if they have any of my favorite books that I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. So yeah.
Night of the Living Dummy. I think I liked that one.
There you go. Yeah. Season 1 aired.
Guy, The Haunted Mask. Here we go. I'm remembering.
Yeah, unfortunately, this falls just outside of our bracket because it aired in October of 2023. And season 2 will not return until January of 2025. So
I will say, Grace, I am having a little bit of trouble with the extra months because now I have to look at every horror movie that aired in 2023 and be like, but which month?
Well,
and so many of them were not in the month that I'm looking for.
It's only a problem for this year. It's only a problem for and then you'll watch a bunch of horror the rest of the year, and then you can look back and remember. It's true. I don't know what to do. I think it's the best solution because of when we're recording. So, that's it.
All right. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. That is what we have for you this week. As again, Big Brother has now ended fully, officially. I mean, not fully, because I still got a lot of work to do on Big Brother stuff. But I'm going to be watching hopefully a lot more stuff. So this was a very packed episode of what we've been watching, what we can recommend. It seems like next week at least has slowed down a bit in terms of things coming out. So hopefully that'll be some time for us to catch up on some of this other stuff that we said we'd give you some follow-up on, as well as watch more horror stuff. So stay tuned for all of that. What else, Grace?
Just the Penguin mostly happening right now. So Mike and I are chatting about the Penguin. I think it's been pretty good. It's been mostly good, if maybe unnecessary, but that's the way it goes. And that's about it for now.
All right, that's about it for now. Go to RHAP We Know Scripted TV. It's you can go to weknowscriptedtv.com to subscribe if you haven't already. If you're listening to this and you're not subscribed, I don't know I don't know what kind of horror
know.
world you live
Yeah.
in, but you know what you should also do though is you should tell your friends about the Tastemakers podcast, because they should know what you know so that you can both talk about it and be like, hey, did you listen to Tastemakers this week? What did you think about the Chaos being canceled or whatever? And then you can talk about it and you can like be true friends, because true friends listen to this podcast
It's
together.
true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check all that stuff out. And we'll be back next time. So thank you all so much for joining us here today. We'll see all of you next week.